Costco's entire promise is value per unit. You buy in bulk, you pay less per ounce, that's the deal. But on a specific set of canned foods, that deal is quietly eroding right now, and the price on the shelf barely moved, so almost nobody notices. This isn't a warning about something coming. Shrinkflation is already here, sitting in your cart. I didn't get this from a tip. I got it from the labels, the trade data, the USDA numbers, and the can industry's own cost figures, and they all point the same way. Here's the mechanism that runs through all 7. The can itself is about 1/3 of what a canned product costs to make. So when steel and aluminum drive can costs up, the savings don't come off the price. They come out of what's inside. We're counting down 7 items, ending with the biggest value loss of all. Let's get into it. Number 7. Canned soup. This is the oldest trick in the canned aisle, and it still works because the can looks identical. Soup is mostly water, and water is the cheapest thing a manufacturer can put in it. When the cost of the can goes up, and it has, with steel and aluminum tariffs pushing can stock costs sharply higher, the easiest way to protect the margin without touching the price is to quietly shift the ratio. A little more broth, a little less of the solids you actually came for. The label still says the same net weight, but the meat, the vegetables, the beans, the parts with real nutrition and real cost make up less of it than they used to. Watch the language on the front too. Now, creamier or richer broth often translates to more thickener and filler standing in for solid ingredients. It sounds like an upgrade. It's usually a downgrade you're being asked to feel good about. Here's the math that cuts through it. Stop reading the price per can and start reading the protein per serving and the sodium per serving on the back. 2 soups at the same price can have wildly different amounts of actual food in them. Canned soup got American families through the Depression as a cheap, filling staple. And it still can, but only if you buy on substance, not on the picture on the label. Buy condensed and add your own water at home. You control the ratio instead of paying for theirs. Compare the protein per serving line across brands, and you'll see the value gap immediately. Number 6. Canned vegetables. The trick on canned vegetables hides in one word on the label: drained. The net weight printed on the front includes the brine the vegetables are packed in. But you don't eat the brine, you pour it down the sink. What you actually eat is the drained weight, and that's the number that shrinks first, because it's the part that costs the manufacturer money to fill. Commodity canned vegetables run on razor-thin margins to begin with, so when the can cost squeeze hits, there's nowhere to absorb it except the fill. The brine goes up, the vegetables go down, and the front of can net weight barely budges. You're paying close to the same price for less actual food, and unless you flip the can over and read the drained weight, you'll never see it happen. The nutrition is genuinely worth having: fiber, potassium, vitamin C, a multi-year shelf life, at a cost per serving almost nothing beats. Canning was invented for exactly this. Nicholas Appert worked out the sealed method in 1809 to feed an army on preserved vegetables. 2 centuries later, it still delivers, if you buy it right. So, read the drained weight, not the net weight, and compare cost per drained ounce between options. Buy no salt added, so you're not paying for salted water. And don't dismiss the store brand. It often comes out of the exact same packing facility as the name brand, at a lower price for the same drained weight. Number 5. Canned tuna. This is the one where you're paying tuna prices for steadily less tuna. And it's happening on 3 fronts at once. Start with the can. The standard tuna can has been quietly shrinking for years. The old 6-ounce can drifted down toward 5 ounces and below, while the price held or climbed. That's the most visible part, and it's still the smallest part of the story. The second front is the fill. Flip a can over and read the drained weight, because the net weight includes the broth or oil the tuna sits in. As the cost pressure builds, the easy lever is more liquid and less fish. The number on the front looks stable. The drained weight, the part you actually eat, is what quietly drops. The third front is the grade. Solid tuna whole. Intact loin costs more to produce than chunk, which is the broken pieces left over. Watch how often the familiar can shift from solid to chunk light at the same shelf price, or how a lower grade of fish gets packed under the same brand you've trusted for years. The packaging tells you it's the same product. The contents tell a different story. And all of this sits on top of real supply pressure. Most tuna is processed in Southeast Asia, where tariff rates have swung hard, and the aluminum can cost squeeze hits this item like everything else on the list. The reason it's worth getting right is the nutrition. Roughly 20 grams of lean protein per can, plus omega-3s, B12, and selenium at a cost per gram of protein. Almost nothing in the store matches when you're actually getting the protein you paid for. So here's how you beat it. Read the drained weight, not the net weight, and do the math on cost per ounce of drained tuna, not per can. Buy solid, not chunk. Buy water-packed for long storage, since there's no oil to oxidize, and it holds 3 to 5 years in metal. And buy by the case, because the per unit price on a case is usually where the real value still lives. The shrink is real, but it's beatable the moment you start reading the back of the can instead of the front. Number 4. Canned beans and chickpeas. This is the purest example of the whole mechanism, because a can of beans is about as simple as canned food gets beans and the liquid they sit in. That liquid is the cheapest thing in the can, and it's exactly where the shrink happens. As the can cost squeeze hits a product that already runs on thin margins, the easy move is to let the fill ratio drift. A little more liquid, a few fewer beans, the same net weight on the front. You only catch it if you read the drained weight, because the beans you actually eat are a smaller share of what you're paying for than they used to be. Here's the twist that works in your favor though. That liquid isn't worthless. The brine in a can of chickpeas aquafaba is a genuine functional ingredient. Whipped, it works as an egg substitute in baking, which means in a world where eggs get expensive or scarce, the thing they're using to shrink your beans is actually something you can use. So you stop treating it as a loss and start keeping it. The nutrition is why beans belong in any pantry. 1 cup of canned chickpeas delivers around 270 calories, 15 grams of protein, 45 grams of complex carbs, and 12 grams of fiber, plus iron and folate. One of the most complete plant proteins you can buy in a can, at any price. People have been growing chickpeas in the Fertile Crescent for roughly 7,500 years. And every major pre-refrigeration civilization in the region built its protein around legumes for exactly this reason. Cheap, dense, and storable through anything. So read the drained weight and compare cost per drained ounce. Buy no salt added so the sodium doesn't limit how you use it. And don't pour the aquafaba down the sink. It's the one case where the filler is worth keeping. Before the next item, here's the thing. This video covers 7 cans. The full list, all 150 items, in 10 sections, each with how much to store, how to keep it, and the cheap substitute most people miss, is in one place. It's the shortage playbook. Real 2026 prices, numbers not vibes, plus a don't buy list of 12 products that just waste your budget. It's built to shop 2 items a week on normal trips. Launch price is $37, down from $67 with a 7-day guarantee. Links in the description at colebriggssecrets.com. Now stay right here, because the next item is where the shrink hides behind a word that sounds like an upgrade. Number 3. Canned salmon and sardines. The shrink on canned fish hides behind words that sound like they're doing you a favor. Skinless and boneless reads like a premium cleaner, more convenient, more refined. On canned salmon and sardines, it's often the opposite. The bones in canned fish are soft, edible, and they're the entire source of the calcium. A single can can deliver a few hundred milligrams of it, all from those bones. Strip them out, and you've removed the calcium and a chunk of the nutritional value, then sold the lighter, cheaper-to-pack version back to you at the same price or higher. The skin carries omega-3s too. Boneless, skinless can quietly mean we took out the parts that cost us and the parts that were good for you. Then there's the tin itself, which has been shrinking the same way the tuna can did, and the grade, where larger intact fillets give way to smaller pieces under familiar branding. Underneath all of it is real supply pressure. Most of the salmon Americans eat is imported and now carries tariffs, and the supply is physically contracting. As oceans warm, the Gulf of Maine is warming faster than almost any comparable body of water, and Pacific runs are shrinking. So the cost pressure is real, but the way it reaches you is through a smaller, lower-grade, nutritionally lighter can at a price that looks unchanged. The nutrition, done right, is exceptional. One can of bone-in wild salmon covers a full week's recommended seafood, serving complete protein, omega, 3S, vitamin D, B12, and that bone calcium. Sardines pack the same profile into a smaller, cheaper tin, and olive oil-packed ones actually improve for a year or two as the oil and fish integrate. So buy bone-in, not boneless. Buy wild-caught pink or sockeye, and avoid anything labeled Atlantic, which usually means farmed with lower omega, 3S. Weigh the value by protein and omega, 3S per dollar, not by the price on the front, and check the drained weight on the tin. The version they're quietly steering you toward is the one that's worse for you and better for them. Number 2. Evaporated and canned milk. This one is getting squeezed from two directions at the same time, which is why the value erosion runs deeper than it looks. The first squeeze is the ingredient. U.S. dairy has been producing at lower volumes, butter and butterfat costs have climbed sharply, and milk powder. A key input for evaporated and condensed milk is significantly imported and under its own cost pressure. The second squeeze is the can, the same steel and aluminum cost increase running through this entire list. When both the contents and the container get more expensive at once, something has to give, and it isn't the price tag. So watch two moves. The first is the can quietly shrinking the familiar tall can, losing an ounce or two while the label stays the same. The second is subtler and more costly to you. The push toward fat-free and low-fat versions at the same price as full-fat. That sounds like a health choice, but in storage and cooking terms, it's a downgrade. Fat-free evaporated milk has lower caloric density and a shorter practical shelf life, so you're paying the same money for fewer calories and less staying power. The fat is doing real work here, and stripping it out quietly reduces what you're getting. The reason evaporated milk earns its shelf space is versatility almost nothing else matches. 1 cup of the full-fat version gives you roughly 340 calories, 17 grams of protein, and solid calcium. And it works as a cooking fat substitute, a coffee base, a soup starter, or a baking liquid one can, doing the job of several ingredients. That flexibility is exactly what makes it worth protecting from the shrink. So buy full-fat, not fat-free you want the calories and the shelf life. Buy evaporated, not condensed, since condensed is loaded with added sugar and locks you into sweet uses only. And read the ounces on the can, because the number's been drifting down while the silhouette stays familiar. Compare calories and protein per dollar, not cans per dollar, and the right buy becomes obvious. Number 1. Canned beef and corned beef. This is the biggest value loss on the entire list, and it's the simplest to explain. The part of the can that's getting more expensive is the part you actually came for. With soup or beans, the shrink hides in water and filler. With canned beef, the protein itself is the cost, and there's nowhere to hide it. So the erosion is steeper, and it's stacked on top of the same can cost squeeze as everything else. Here's the data underneath it, and it's the heaviest on the list. The US cattle herd is at its smallest in roughly 75 years. And rebuilding a herd isn't realistic before 2028. These animals take years to raise, so there's no quick fix on supply. On top of that, the southern border has been closed to live cattle imports following a screwworm outbreak, cutting off well over 1 million head a year that used to flow into the supply chain. The USDA's own outlook projects beef prices continuing to climb. When the core ingredient costs this much more, the can shrinks, the portion gets smaller, and the fill fat, gelatin, broth, quietly takes up more of what's inside. You're paying beef prices for less beef than the same can held a couple of years ago? So read the drained weight here more carefully than anywhere else. Because the gap between what the can appears to hold and what it actually delivers in solid protein is where the real money leaks. And the reason it's still worth buying, right, despite all that, is that brined, heat-sealed canned beef is one of the most proven shelf-stable proteins that exists. Military testing has shown it holding up for a decade or more with minimal quality loss. This isn't new technology. British working families ate it for 2 centuries. It was a standard Allied field ration in World War II, and Pacific Island communities built whole culinary traditions around it through mid-century supply chains. 3 ounces gives you around 210 calories, 25 grams of protein, a complete amino acid profile, plus B12, zinc, and iron, the 3 nutrients hardest to maintain when protein gets expensive. So compare cost per gram of protein, not per can on this item more than any other. That's the number that exposes the shrink. Look for Brazilian or Argentine imports, and check every can for a dented seam, because a broken seal means the product is compromised. Buy the real protein content, not the picture on the label. Here's how you stop overpaying. Everything in this video comes down to one habit, and once it's automatic, shrinkflation basically stops working on you. The price tag is the number they want you looking at, because it's the one they're keeping still. So look at the other numbers instead. Every shelf tag at Costco has a unit price printed in small type cost per ounce, per pound, per count. That's the real number. Compare it across sizes, across brands, and across the store brand versus the name brand, and the value gap stops being invisible. Then go one level deeper on canned goods specifically. Read the drained weight, not the net weight. The net weight includes the water, brine, oil, or broth you're going to pour out. The drained weight is the food you actually eat, and it's the number that shrinks first. 2 cans at the same price and the same net weight can hold very different amounts of real food, and the drained weight on the back is the only place that shows. From there, a few specific moves cover the whole list. Buy condensed and concentrated, and add your own water at home, soup, broth, anything where you can control the ratio instead of paying for theirs. Buy the grade that holds the value: solid tuna over chunk, bone-in fish over boneless, full-fat milk over fat-free. Keep what used to be waste when it's actually useful. The aquafaba in a can of chickpeas is a real ingredient now, not a loss. And on protein especially, compare cost per gram of protein, because that's where the steepest erosion hides. The store brand is worth a hard look on every one of these. It often comes out of the same packing facility as the name brand, at a lower unit price for the same drained weight. None of this takes longer than flipping a can over and reading 2 numbers. That's the entire defense. The companies are betting you'll keep shopping on the sticker. The moment you shop on the unit price and the drained weight, you've taken the trick apart. If this helped you see what the price tag was hiding, subscribe and stick around. We do this the calm way, with real numbers, before the shelves are empty. That's the whole point of this channel. Not panic, just paying attention a little earlier and a little closer than everyone else. Next time, we're taking this same math into the dry goods aisle: rice, pasta, flour, and cereal, where the box stays the same size and the amount inside quietly drops, and the simple swaps that get your value back. So, which of these had you fooled? The soup, the tuna, the canned beef, or something else on the list? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.